Hey, Mike, did you get the packet okay?
Yeah, the one you emailed.
Okay. Yeah, Jerry said he didn't get it. It gave him some sort of issue, so I sent it to him again, so hopefully he got it.
For both of the places, we didn't have any drawing at all from either one of those places about how things were going to be located on the property, did we?
So I sent you two different ones. So I sent you I guess I'm trying something new. Because I know like Marilee doesn't like to print, maps and stuff. So I sent you two. I sent you the packet with their drawings, which we'll bring up, and then the printer friendly, which wouldn't have their drawings on it. But he also, the guy for the yurt one, sent me a few more drawings. So I'll email those over to Michelle right now.
Okay, let me pull up the other one, and I've got the printer friendly one.
Yeah, so whenever you see those, that one's not going to have any images in it, so you can print and not ruin your ink cartridges. So it's just something new I'm trying. If we don't like it, we don't like it. And we won't do it, but
Jeremy, so the packets that I have, are those the correct ones?
they should be.
The ones that we put on the website?
Those should be, yes. Do
Okay.
they say printer friendly?
I have no idea.
If they say printer friendly, then probably not, but
The one for ZBA is 24 pages.
as long as it's not named printer friendly, it should be fine.
It doesn't look like it is.
And I think the planning commission one, though, I need to add the site plans for that, so let me do that now. I'm gonna forward you an email from the guy that's gonna be the second one on. It's for a year. He has a PDF and something else he wanted to share. So if we decide we need to, we can.
Yeah, I can try. It's always better for me to have that stuff before the meetings because it's hard with the bandwidth to download it.
I know.
I will give it a shot here. You sending it right now?
Yep, just good. And then hopefully the packet for the planning commission has the site plans in it, which it may not. So site plans aren't in the city planning commission packet. If I add them in and send it to you now, will you have it by 7?
I don't know. The sooner you send it to me, the better. I'll start trying to download it. Okay. Just depends on how big it is.
I'll add them in right now. I'll take out any pages we don't need.
Or if you send me the site plans separately, I mean, I already have the packet.
Oh, I can do that. There's only 2 of them, so hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Total of 10 megabytes I sent it to. Let me know if you don't get them because it's saying you have unsent emails. Some emails in your inbox can't be delivered. Outbox can't be delivered, which is
Hello, Mike. Hello, Jerry.
Good evening.
Looks like I got them. I'll start trying to download them.
Okay, awesome.
Everybody keeps popping in.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yep, I hear you just fine.
Good.
Mary Lee, you're on mute. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Cindy.
Mary Lee, we were not hearing you earlier. It looked like you were trying to say something.
Looks like
Can you-
she's in now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Every time it's different. Who knows?
Okay, Jeremy, it looks like I have everything. So
Okay.
you or whoever else that needs to see stuff will just have to walk me through what you want me to pull up.
Yep, I'll tell that I named them the agenda items, so I'll tell you what they are when we get to it.
Looks like we're having a room full here.
Right. Marilee, was that printer friendly version better for you?
Yes, that was great. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate it. Saved me a trip downtown.
We'll stick with that route then.
Okay.
Are we expecting anybody else if we know of?
Seemed like everyone was supposed to be here.
It looks like our one petitioner's trying to get in here.
I know Alex Robbins is with 660 or 600.
Looks like all the ZBA members are here.
I think Dunbar is for the other item.
I see Dunbar's here. I don't know about who's here for our second item on Broad Street.
That would be Alex Robbins. He's in here.
Well, I think it says 6:30, so I believe it's time to get this show on the road. First thing I'd like to do is welcome everybody back and a happy new year, and hopefully we get through this next year with a little more a little positive than we had the last year. First item on our agenda, we call to order the meeting of the January 5th Zoning Board of Appeals. And our item is the approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was November 3rd. So everybody had a copy of the minutes and had a chance to look through them. If there are no additions or corrections, I would accept a motion to accept the minutes.
Move to approve the November minutes.
I'll
I'll
support
second.
that.
Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead, Cindy. You can have it.
Marilee and I support that.
Yes, we do.
Okay, we have a motion and all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. Next item on the agenda, we have some new business. Our first one is for 1125 Scott Ridge Drive, an accessory building over 100 square feet. I believe I saw we had a name on the screen here, Dunbar. If you're here and like to explain a little bit what you're looking to do, we'd like to hear from you, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. What I want to do is I want to put a 12 by 16 accessory building on my lot that I own that's adjacent to my home, and it's on a corner lot. I live at 1135 Berkshire, and my lot is 1125 Scott Ridge, and I had a picture of it right there. You got it up on the screen. I have a large zero-turn lawnmower. I have a large rototiller because I plant a garden on my vacant lot. There I have a picture of, I had the stone base put in, and I didn't realize I had to get it, I was under the impression that that ordinance was going to pass and I wouldn't have to go through all this, but so I went ahead and had the base put in, and that's about where it's located right there. You can see my garden plot on there. It's just be sitting in one corner of my garden. It used to be my garden.
Commissioners, questions?
I have a question. When are you planning to put this shed there?
I was waiting for permission
But will it be in the spring or will it be soon?
soon after, if I hear
Okay.
tonight, it'll be soon.
Okay.
It's already built and, it's available.
The reason I ask is I was hoping we could just put all these off until planning commission does its thing.
And I've tried to do that, and I feel really bad for a lot of people that I've asked to do that. But some people want it now, and they obviously have to store, like he has his lawnmower and that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I want to clear out my garage.
we're still looking at about a month before, there's 2 city commission readings of our ordinance, so, but that's up tonight, so.
It's important to remember, this isn't a variance. This is an approval that the zoning board of appeals is charged with giving, but it's not in the nature of a variance. So it's not like you have to worry like, oh, can we make the findings justifying a variance? That's not the nature of that. When you're over the threshold, those size accessory buildings just have to be reviewed by the zoning board of appeals to make sure they're in harmony with the location.
Can you explain to me, I'm sorry,
Go
can you
ahead, Cindy.
explain the difference between what we dealt with in November that was a non-permanent structure that was the only structure on a lot, and this shed that is the only structure on its lot?
Well, one difference is this is expressly provided for in the zoning ordinance.
Uh-huh.
I
So
think-
if,
That's probably a key difference. The other one's expressly prohibited by the zoning ordinance. That was an appeal from an enforcement action that we dealt with in November for something that, that was not permitted by the ordinance.
right, he was not allowed to live there, but I think someone said during the discussion 2 months ago that you cannot have only an accessory building or on a lot,
That's
even if he
true.
wasn't living there.
That is true. You can't have an accessory use without a principal use. In this case, the way the zoning ordinance views contiguous property is that it treats them as one zoning lot for purposes of
Okay,
the zoning ordinance. And if in the future, this fellow wanted to sell off that other lot, then there would have to be some sort of remedial action taken. I mean, it would be fine if there was a house going to be built imminently, but otherwise the shed would actually have to be removed at that point.
okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dunbar, I have a question for you, please.
Okay.
I know you are a member of your homeowners association. Does your association there now, I know you said allows accessory buildings to be built, but do they have no restrictions as to whether or not it's behind your house versus on the side of your house?
I don't believe so. I can't use my backyard because the
Yes.
the guy behind me has basically a cement parking lot. Because he
I
runs
saw
a
that.
business out of his home. And my backyard floods occasionally from any heavy downpours or like we have a really wet spring. So I couldn't put it in my backyard. Now, eventually what we want to do is I'm retired and my wife's going to retire in a couple of years. We want to sell our home, our principal home that's right next door right now. And then, in the future, and then build a house on that lot. I've owned it for over 10 years, so.
But it's okay with your association set up that way? Not to
Yeah, I
have any-
talked to the homeowners association president,
Okay.
treasurer, and nobody had any objections to it.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I want to point out, just, we don't really have control over your association, so make sure you clear all that with them.
Right,
Just approval
I
from
have
us
already.
doesn't mean approval to your association.
right. I've already talked to him about it, so.
Okay.
In our packet, we had here a couple of questions, but I think the picture maybe shows a bit more, but there was no, in the original information, we did not have a height of the building. And as far as, identifying the material the building is going to be built from, because that's one of the things we look at. And, but now the picture kind of squares that up, but just, what is going to be the height of that structure?
I don't know, the sidewalls, I believe are 8 foot. So I don't know what the top of the peak is. I didn't measure it. So
Probably no more than 12 feet
yeah, I think it's gotta be at least 12. Yeah, I think it's like 12.
or no more than 12 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't look like an issue, but it was just a question we had on our packet here. I wanted to make sure we got it clarified.
The problem with it is, I assume this was coming from the Amish shed place.
Correct.
South of town. And they don't necessarily give us the dimensions. They'll give us the square footage and the, width and all that stuff, but they don't give us height usually. Not that it's a problem, but it's still good for us to ask, just to make sure that you're not going over that height. Materials, they're similar, so.
Any other questions from commissioners?
No.
Is there anyone else in here, neighbors or anybody, I don't know who all's in here to speak on this item? Hearing none, it's not like we have to go through and find any finding of fact because we're not offering a variance. So I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of the request for the storage shed at Berkshire, sorry. At 1125 Scott Ridge Drive.
We have support.
I support.
We have a motion. Any questions on the motion? At this point, Jeremiah, we have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Berthold,
Yes.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Beely,
Yes,
Strayer,
Yes.
Bird,
Gary? You there?
maybe muted. Kolesky,
Yes, support.
Bird one more time.
Okay, the motion passes. You can get your building and get things in before snow flies.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Next item on the agenda, 600 North Broad Street. Do we have someone here to speak on that, please?
Yep, I am here. Turn yours up, please. So this is John Schoonmaker.
Okay, can you kind of explain what's going on? This is something that has never come across in my years of doing this. So let's just kind of talk us through this a little bit and see what's going on here.
So our building, we have groups of folks that come into our building, and yeah, about the most we can hold in our building is about 15 comfortably in our group area. And so we're looking for a economical way to increase our gathering space. So as we looked around, we found a yurt as an option for us, which is it's considered a temporary structure, but it's put on it. We would like to put it on a deck out back so that we have, you can get about 25, 30 people rather than our 15. So
this is going to be more of a permanent structure?
well, yeah, we wouldn't take it down, but I know that the company bills them as temporary structures because they can be easily moved.
So they last about 15 to 20 years then, right?
Yep, that's what I understand. And you can replace, you know, the vinyl that surrounds it. You can replace that as necessary. So to keep it looking good.
Question for staff, does this meet building requirements? Is the building inspector okay with this?
He's looked at it. I don't have a definitive answer, but he'll definitely be in the process of it for the installation. I don't know if Greg, maybe you can jump in, but he shouldn't, I mean, you should be able to still approve this and it still have to go through him for appropriate, you know, footings and all that kind of stuff. Without it being your concern, I would think.
But I don't think it's exempt from a building permit. I think a building permit will be required.
No, they'd still have to, for this size too, I'm sure Tony would want drawings.
John, will it have utilities? I presume there'll be electricity run to it.
Well,
Bathrooms?
no bathrooms. It's pretty much going to be a 3-season building. So if we ran something out there, it would just be an extension cord that we would use temporarily. So
What are the hours of use of this particular structure?
usually our last, if we're here, a last meeting would be done by 8:30 or so in the evening. Never earlier than that, or never earlier than, you know, we're usually not here until about 9 or so in the mornings.
So what's this going to do to your parking spaces that are allotted there? Because it looks like you're going to be building on some of those spots.
No, so it's in the backyard, kind of. Yeah, it's not on the parking at all.
Okay, so the driveway goes around in a circle there on the side,
Oh.
and is it behind that?
No, you know, that's a funny little thing. That's just a sidewalk for big wheels when this was a daycare.
Okay. Okay,
So it just goes nowhere.
all right, and it'll be equipped then to be able to abstain our snow load that you might have from
Yeah.
our wonderful weather?
Yep, the kit that we're looking at is an all-weather kit. So it comes with snow, the ability to withstand snow in our climate.
There's for what it's worth, there's a ski resort in the Keweenaw Peninsula
Yes.
that houses all of their guests in yurts like this one.
Yep.
And they have been there for years, and they seem to be pretty sturdy things.
I looked online at what some of the lot of variations, but one of the questions that we do have is, how tall is this going to be? Is this like just, you know?
Well, yeah, this is where we kind of run into a little bit of something. I talked with the owner and from the so there's this peak on it. And it's a circle, so it kind of comes to a peak in the middle. And that is 15.5 foot high on the outside. So if we have it up on a deck, that's 18 inches off the ground or so, it's going to put it probably at about 17 feet, just at that peak.
Which is probably okay because we measure the height of a structure on the average height of the peak. So about halfway up the peak.
Oh, okay.
That's where the 14 feet is halfway up the peak?
That's it.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. If the whole thing is about 17 feet tall, that's probably about right.
Just another question, not that I'm opposed, just a question for clarification. There's already a building setting back there. Is there a limit of anything we have on how many accessory buildings you can have on a parcel?
This is where things get muddy because we consider this technically a tool shed because it's not for use of storage of motor vehicles. Technically, they have a tool shed, so yes, this would be a second tool shed. So you may have to grant a variance to have a second accessory building. Although usually that would be for residential properties, and this isn't a resident, I mean, it's a residential zone. We put these kind of things like churches and all these in residential zones, but you may have to grant the variance for having a second structure there. Because technically it's not housing cars, so.
And we have no problem with lot coverage, I assume.
No. I would say to be safe, we should add into it that, it's a variance for the second accessory structure, just to be safe for now.
Does anyone else in this meeting have a question or a comment?
Hey, Mike, do we have any picture of this particular one that's going to be purchased? If it's granted?
Jeremiah had some pictures. I don't know if it was of the specific one or not.
No, I think it said that there wasn't the specific one, that was still up in the air, but I just wondered,
Michelle had one up.
being a visual person.
Michelle, can you bring that back up what you had?
And as we choose the kit, there's, I think, 7 different colors that we can choose. And, I'm happy to go through a process to make sure that those colors, work fine. But the top can be one color and the side can be another color. And they're all earth tone based colors.
Michelle, are you there we go. Thank you. Make you jump back and forth here with all these things.
Sorry about that. I lost connection for a minute, so.
It'd be the one I emailed you, the example they sent me.
I went online and I checked out what some of them look like, but I just wondered if there was a specific one that you had in mind, John.
No, I haven't even considered colors yet. I know
Okay.
we'll have a front door and a back door. And how many windows? And 2 windows at a minimum. So.
Okay.
Is the style. that
Jeremy,
you-
was it the Word document? I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's okay. We don't.
I'm
need it.
fine.
The one you had up earlier that was by itself.
Right, I saw that one.
Now, Jeremiah, just to make clear, this does not need a variance for the building, but we would need a variance for a second building.
I would do
And for
both.
setbacks.
I would do both to be safe. setbacks, it's fine, because technically you can have, you know, that in the rear yard. They meet the side yard. You know, it's something I want to look at, I guess, when we do our master plan, but it's not really provided for these things that we put in residential districts, so I would do it just to be safe. So two variances, not really a second variance, but the first one would be allowing of the accessory structure that big, and then a variance for having this accessory structure.
Okay. Any other questions from
Advertise the
commissioners?
variance, Jeremy?
What's that?
Did we advertise a variance?
No, we advertised a accessory structure. It wasn't advertised as a variance nor not being a variance.
I think you gotta advertise the variance if you're gonna consider it.
You know, not being clear whether a variance is actually required or not. I would make a motion to approve the accessory building as presented.
Can I ask,
And adoption of the resolution that staff has provided.
so
Did we
can I
hear
ask,
from any neighbors?
yes, that's what I want to know.
What was that?
Did we hear from any neighbors?
I had one neighbor call that adjoins the property, and she didn't know what a yurt was, which I didn't either. And she didn't have internet, so she called me, and I explained to her what it was as best I could. And her words were that they do great work over there, and she's happy for it.
Okay.
That was the only call that I had or communications with anyone.
And there's nobody on this Zoom from the neighborhood?
Apparently not.
Okay.
So if this gets approved, that means now we've opened this up so that if somebody wanted to in my neighborhood, put one in their backyard, that's now going to be permissible?
If you approve it, I guess.
Well, it doesn't change what's permissible. The procedure that was necessary to be able to have something of this size is the same one that we've gone through many times here with accessory buildings that exceed the size limitation. That may change if we pass the accessory building proposed modifications of accessory building regulations that are on the planning commission agenda tonight. But as it stands now, there's an administrative review that the zoning board of appeals must engage in for any structure that's above 100 square feet. That would include yurts, but it doesn't set a precedent or doesn't change anything as it relates to that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have someone with a question there? Or was it Eric that popped up? You have a question? Okay, guess not. We still have a motion that, and we do not have support for the motion.
I'll support the motion.
Okay, any discussion on the motion to approve as written? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Beely,
Yes.
Strayer,
Yes.
Pulaski,
Yes.
Berg. He may still be muted. Berthold,
Yes.
I say no.
there is, I guess, an opposition.
Who said no?
Eric.
Eric,
Who's Eric?
I don't know who Eric is. Why is Eric voting?
Eric had his hand raised to talk during public comment, maybe.
Yes.
I might have came in just a little bit late.
Go, Eric, is there something you wish to say at this time?
This is about the gas station, right? Lightning quick.
No,
No,
For
sir.
this
Not even
zoning.
right meeting.
no, wrong meeting.
Wrong meeting, Eric. That starts at 7 o'clock or maybe a little later.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'll shut my mouth.
No problem. It's a bit confusing. We all work our way through this. Okay, Jeremiah, you got through the roll call vote, I believe.
Yep. I don't know. I don't know if Jerry Berg's here, but he
Yep,
was
he's-
muted on both of them.
Jerry, did you vote on that? You're muted, Jerry.
He was muted on the other one too. So I mean, it passed. So it's up to you.
Okay. Do we have?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I
Yay.
vote yes. Vote
Okay.
yes.
And did you on the prior?
Jerry?
Did you?
How
on the
about the
prior
first
motion?
one, Jerry?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was in and I didn't mute myself, so I don't know how that happened. Okay, anyway, yes on both.
Well, it's nice to hear from you.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other business to come before us at this time? Hearing none, I will close the zoning board meeting and the planning commission will begin in a few minutes.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
everyone.
Quick question. Can anybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, just wondering, so are we able to move forward with our plans then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Who's speaking?
This is John Schoonmaker.
Yes.
Okay, so get in touch with the inspector's department and get a permit and get all that moving.
So you'll want to talk to Tony, yeah, about what he needs from you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Is zoning over?
Zoning's over.
Thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
So there's going to be quite a few. We're up to 34 participants, which gets a little bit hard to manage when I'm screen sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably keep that to a minimum this meeting.
Okay.
I'm not going to pull up the agenda necessarily, but as commissioners need items pulled up on the screen, if everyone wants to just let me know.
They have the packets. I would think the only thing we need is the site plans. So,
Need the site plan for the public, but
yeah.
we'll limit it to when we're actually talking about it.
Hey, Mike, if you're talking to us, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My mic was off. Not muted, but off. Calling to order the January 5th regular meeting of the Adrian City Planning Commission. Are we good now? You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. First item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes from the December 1st meeting. Commissioners, I believe you have copies of those minutes and you've had an opportunity to review them. Are there any additions or corrections to the December 1st Planning Commission minutes? If there are none, we would
I have something.
Oh,
Page 6 for case 20-054. In the
Yes.
first paragraph, it discussed the last sentence of that paragraph. The commission discussed the materials that were required in the form-based district and did not find it appropriate to apply this to a building that's vinyl siding, is then repeated again after the motion to untable it.
So the reason I
So
did
it's
that is
repetitive.
when I was listening to it, you guys discussed that and then you motioned to untable, then you discussed that again and then made your motion. So that was the only.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I can change it. I mean, it was kind of
Nope.
redundant, I guess,
Yep.
but it's just why I was listening to them.
That's fine if that's the way it happened.
okay.
I move to approve then.
And who was that from?
Love.
Love, thank you.
Taylor.
And support from Taylor. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes from the December meeting are approved. Next item on the
Chair,
agenda is to consider our meeting schedule
Mike.
for this year.
do we want to take a roll?
call. Yes, please, Jeremy, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Please do
Shkovic,
that. Here,
Love,
Here.
Weatherby,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Watson,
Present.
Taylor.
You.
Okay, Taylor.
he's here, I see him.
Yep. Cotton,
Here.
Gauss,
Yes, I'm here.
all members are present.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Next item on the agenda is to consider our meetings for this coming year. Staff has provided a list of those for a tentative schedule. Unless there's some discussion or suggested changes, we would entertain a motion for approval of that meeting schedule for the 2021 year.
Just note that 2 of the meetings are moved from your usual date to the following Tuesday because of conflict with the city commission.
That being the July and the September meetings. Those being the July and September meetings.
Yep. so you'll
Move to
move the
approve.
Krista, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2021. Is there support?
Support. Watson.
Support from Watson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Next item on our agenda is case 21002, which is a ordinance amendment that would permit chickens in residential neighborhoods in the backyard. Folks, we have discussed this a couple times now, and staff has provided us with draft ordinance. Thank you, Jeremy, and anyone else that worked on that. Quite a bit of work went into that. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review this. I think maybe we'll start off with any commission discussion on this before we solicit any comments from the audience. Anybody?
I'll
have comments after I listen to what the public has to say.
Oh, okay, very well.
Who's first, public or commissioners?
I was asking for commissioner comments or commissioner questions to start with.
I don't have any questions. I would just say that I think this is a pretty good compromise based on the discussions we've had and the input we've had from the public prior to this.
Okay, any other commissioners?
I have to say that I think this is a very strong ordinance if we had to move forward with chickens in the city, but I do have numerous problems with chickens in the city.
And who's speaking, please? I can't tell from my screen.
This is Commissioner Love.
Oh, thank you, Bob. I'm sorry. Thanks.
So currently on the east side of town especially, and Mike, you know this, we currently have a large problem with enforcement of current ordinances. And I have a problem with adding one more large set of ordinances that need to be enforced. And my big problem with that is that if someone does have a complaint, I have a problem knowing that that's going to be followed up with and taken care of promptly and efficiently in the correct manner. I also have been approached and talked to numerous residents of the city who have either vehemently spoken against having chickens, or if they haven't, when asked if they would like their neighbor to have chickens, have emotionally spoken against that. My other comment is growing up in an area, so growing up in Blissfield in the village, but still on the outskirts of it, is concerns about waste management. And I don't know putting it in the ordinance or where to put it in the ordinance. So that's why I never came forward with that part of it, of putting it in the ordinance, but making sure that waste is taken care of and removed from property to prevent odors, and making sure it's taken care of properly to prevent disease, and other creatures from wanting to come into the city. And then my last thing is I actually moved to the city, and I know a lot of people otherwise have moved to the city of Adrian. The city of Adrian, although a city, is still considered a rural area. And moving to the city so that you don't have farm animals in your neighborhood, and having chickens in that instance is one thing that I definitely wouldn't want in my neighborhood. And with that, I rest.
Thank you, Robert. Commissioners, other commissioner comments?
I would like to agree with Commissioner Love. My concern right now at this stage is, like he said, adding extra ordinance enforcement to an already taxed department. We just hired another person, if I'm correct, to help out in code enforcement. That person, I don't know their name, or I would use their name. Is, you know, one of them's focusing on apartments, the other one is focusing on code enforcement. And Bob is right. We have a problem currently of enforcing the codes we have. So why are we going to add something else to the pile to create a tax on the city, or, you know, taxing on our resources as in manpower? That's my concern. And that's how I kind of feel right at this moment.
Other commissioner comments or questions?
And this is Commissioner Weatherby. I've said before that I'm quite uncomfortable, I guess, in not supporting something because we cannot enforce our codes currently. I think that's a separate issue. And if that is an issue of code enforcement, then I think that's something that needs to be addressed separately and should not necessarily be tied to this particular issue, as I've said before.
Okay.
Commissioner Taylor, I have some comments as well. I would tend to agree with Commissioner Weatherby on that issue. I agree they are separate issues, although I know one impacts the other one. Do I want to have chickens in my backyard? Probably not. Do I want to have them in my neighbor's backyard? Probably not. But I don't know that we have a real sense of what our citizens want. I think WLEN did a poll, and anybody that could hear it probably responded to it, and it was like 73% were in favor of allowing it, but who knows who voted, right? So I don't know, I'm torn on this issue. I think the numbers would probably be pretty small. I know we already have chickens in the in city limits. So I wish I had a better handle on what our citizens felt.
Thank you, Don. Other commissioner comments?
I'd just like to say too, that my concern isn't the law abiding citizen. It's the parent that goes out to Tractor Supply and buys a cute little baby chicken for Easter and then takes it home and is like, oh, I got to take care of this. And then they let it go. You know, we're bringing this, the unfortunate problem is we're bringing this to the forefront where people will be like, well, I can just go buy a chicken. It'll be cute. And then it turns into a big chicken. And then they're just like, well, let's just open the door and let it go because I don't want to feed it anymore. And then it's running around. East side, west side, north side, south side, wherever. It's going to be, you know, that's another issue I'm concerned about.
Well, it's not like somebody can buy a chicken, put it in a cardboard box and have it in the backyard. They've got to invest some money to have an appropriate chicken coop and an appropriate covered run.
And a permit?
Well, the ordinance says that, but you have people that do that with sheds now.
And I understand that, Don, but the issue is the people that don't follow. I mean, Tractor Supply is not going to regulate who buys a chicken. And I'm sorry to pick on Tractor Supply, but that's just the name. That's who sells chickens. You know, they're not going to regulate who's going to buy a chicken. They're, you know, if you got your $20, they're going to sell you a chicken.
Well, that may be true, but we're going to regulate it because the city would have an ordinance. Jeremy would be the one who would issue the appropriate approvals.
And
I understand that, Don, but
you can say the same thing. You could say the same thing about sheds too, because that Amish place south of town, they'll sell a shed to anybody.
I agree. But what I'm saying is they're going to buy, if I buy 5 chickens and just let them go outside,
well,
who's going to know? That's what I'm saying. Like, who's going to know? That's my concern, is that we end up with chickens running around.
Aren't we requiring a permit?
Yes. Yep, in a coop. And
but Brian is suggesting he could just go buy 5 chickens or 4 chickens and have them run around the backyard, in which case, if code enforcement is doing a good job, somebody will complain and they'll go tell you got to get rid of your chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And the other, I mean, it's chickens, dogs, cats, whatever it is. We require that you're supposed to have a license for your cats and your dogs, but I'd say that more than 50% of the cats and dogs in this city and county don't have a license. To me, it's no different.
I always had a license for my dog.
Okay, very well. Other commissioner comments?
Yeah, I've stayed quiet long enough, Mike. This is a record for me. First of all, the issue of what does the public think? Understand what Commissioner Love said. I've talked to a lot of people. I've only had 2. One of them is on the call tonight, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to the issue. And one other person who's not on the call who have spoken out in favor of having chickens. With regard to the WLEN poll, I don't know exactly how many. I'm told it was somewhere between 100 and 125. But WLEN covers the county. You don't know where those calls came from. So to say 73% of the people in the city, you know, that participated in the survey is probably not right. I have a number of issues, and one of them is I think chickens belong in the country. I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. I've had those 2 people, actually one of the 2 people who said they were proponents of chickens say that if they couldn't get chickens in the city, they were going to move out of the city. I've had no less than 75 people who have contacted me to tell me that if there are chickens in the city, they're going to move out of the city. I think they're all bluffing.
Yeah.
I don't believe that anybody's going to pick up and move because, you know, there are chickens or there aren't chickens. I'm just not buying that. I am concerned about a couple of other issues. The disease, the rodents, all of the things that come with raising backyard chickens, we will have. And the issue of rodents particularly, they will not be isolated in the yard where the chickens live. They'll go through your yard, my yard, whomever, to get to the chickens or get to the chicken eggs or whatever they're going to go after. So it's not just an issue that the chicken owner is going to have to deal with. You can go to the CDC website and look at all of the different disease, avian flu, E. coli, salmonella, all the issues in areas. Salmonella, that's when you don't clean your chickens right. No, that's chicken meat. This,
Right.
they're talking about
Yeah, that's
chicken.
not this.
Yeah, so there are all these things associated with. And then I've said on a number of occasions to people, anybody that will listen, I don't think that urban chickens are good for the city because I don't believe that they enhance the property values of the properties within the city. I don't believe if my next door neighbor decides to have chickens and I want to sell my house, that my house is going to be, my value of my house is going to be enhanced by my neighbor's chickens. I can't prove that, but I got to believe that there be a certain group of the population that won't even consider buying my house because there's chickens next door. And I think those who would consider it, I would get a lower price for my house. Now, if in fact that's right, and I can't prove it, like I said, I think the opposite is probably true, that it detracts from property value. If that is the case, property values will decline, property tax revenues will decline, and the last thing the city of Adrian needs right now, or any other time, is lower revenues from property taxes. That's where I'm at on this thing.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think we will switch to comments from the audience. And folks, I would, in the interest of time, we've got a number of, we've got yet another ordinance similar to this one to discuss after this. So if you would, please first identify yourself, name and address so we know who we're speaking with, and tell us what you'd like to say. And if you could, keep your comments brief.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. I'm a former City of Adrian Planning Commissioner, and I support having chickens in the city. Tonight, you are going to hear a variety of issues from both sides of the table, and I'm going to highlight several out-of-the-box reasons for you to make the recommendation to approve this ordinance. I live on the east side of Adrian, where blight has been a problem for the past 15 years. It is something Precinct 2 and voters have learned to live with. And I'm asking you to take any code enforcement concerns that are raised out of the equation. Code enforcement in the city of Adrian is political and a low priority concern for the current set of city commissioners who do not rely on voters from precincts 2 and 3. And by the way, there is a lot of enforcement that needs to take place in these precincts. To support this statement, I only ask you to look at the recently passed deer feeding ordinance. The deer feeding ordinance.
Ken, you just went away.
For city council meetings. And enforcement was put at the top of the list. Ordinance enforcement is political, and don't let anyone tell you anything different. The chicken ordinance is a city council issue, pass the buck on to the planning commission. The Adrian City Commission asked the planning commission to make a recommendation / decision about chickens, but when it came to feeding the deer, the current city of Adrian City Council was more than qualified to make that decision without your recommendation. Again, this is political, and that I'm asking you to approve and force the Adrian City Commission to do their job.
Ken, your audio keeps cutting out, Ken.
Oh, can I call back and speak?
We'll move on to someone else, and when you get back on,
all right, I'm gonna
see where we are. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Jill Roberts, and I don't know if you can hear me, but Jill Roberts, I live at 414 Dennis Street. While I have one of those yards that would not allow me to have chickens, I fully support the idea to have chickens and to be allowed in the city of Adrian. I'm a teacher, and I see how this could help families nurture, provide for their families. and I urge the planning committee to adopt the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Just so folks know, any action that we take on this proposal will be in the form of a recommendation to the city commission. Only the city commission has the authority to enact an ordinance like this. So any action we take will be in the form of a recommendation. Okay, anybody else?
This is Mayor Heath, 560 Meadowbrook Drive. I had actually reached out personally to WLEN and asked them about the poll. So the exact numbers that I got for them were 644 people responded to the poll. 73% said yes, 21% said no, and 6% needed more info. However, when I asked the question after that, if they knew where the people lived that voted, they had no idea. And they said it could have been anybody, but I just wanted to go ahead and let you know what they had told me for their facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Like you said, it could be any place in or outside of Lenawee County even. So, okay, anybody else?
I'm Cindy Beely. I live at 718 College on the west side. And I've been on the ZBA through placemaking, through all the initiatives, including cool cities. I just want to say in terms of the property values, there are a lot of cities a lot cooler than us who have chickens. And they include Albuquerque, Missoula, Seattle, Phoenix, Madison, and Ann Arbor. And they've all decided that it's an ecological choice that doesn't affect their property values.
Thank you. Anybody else?
J Marks, 4921 Hunt Road. I just want to touch on some of the things you guys were talking about with regards to chickens, the bringing up of chickens. Though I don't live in the city and it won't affect me, I do raise chickens, and I've raised a large number of chickens. And the talk about disease and waste management, although waste management is important, the disease talk and the waste management is by far over talked based on the number of chickens you're going to allow. That could be easily worked into a local an area flower garden in the area without causing any foul stenches or any problems there. Rodents for a handful of birds are unseen as long as you're properly managing them. And with regards to letting chickens go in the city, if you want to throw money out the window, I mean, birds aren't cheap, so if you just want to buy 5 or 6 birds and let them go, so be it. But I don't see people dumping $30 or $40 as a gift and then just dumping them out when they don't want to take care of them anymore. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that will pick them up and take care of them and raise them on their own, as they will in any area township. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. As I said, we do have a limit on time. If there's any more comments, this would be a good time to get them in before we move on.
Will Camp, 256 Ironwood Drive. Lenawee County has the longest running county fair in Michigan. I'm not sure you were aware of that. And it's also the largest agricultural producer in Michigan. And we're the county seat. So we live in a rural county, an extremely rural county. And we're a very small city in a rural county. So a vote against chickens says my desire to have chickens is impeded by not trusting other people to do it right because you don't have enforcement resources. For NIMBY, not in my backyard arguments, property values are not negatively impacted. There's MSU extension articles actually showing the opposite of that. So all I'm really hearing is, I don't really want them. I don't want my neighbor to have them. I don't have a real reason besides I don't. I don't want 5 dogs next door. I don't want someone to let dogs out either. I don't want it to smell like manure from the farm fields, but we live in the country. That is where we are. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Kennedy, 1338 West Maumee. I'd like to speak about chickens, and I hope that you will vote no. When we talk about property value, again, as Commissioner Gauss alluded to, there's an untrackable statistic as far as property value and what someone will offer to it. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about animals and farm animals, next thing you know, should we have pigs here? Where do we stop? Number 3, if you're looking to move to the country because you can't have chickens in the city of Adrian, contact me. I'll help your moving expenses. I might even pay for them all. If you need eggs, maybe I'll pay for 2 dozen eggs per week for you. Just let me know. As far as the complaints are concerned, if you're not a city of Adrian resident, I suggest you go elsewhere because there's nothing to speak of here. I don't know how you can sit there and tell city of Adrian residents what we should do or what we shouldn't do. Thank you.
Okay. One last comment.
Ashley Gonzalez.
Oh.
Ashley Gonzalez, 416 May Drive. I think the most unfortunate part that I've heard today is an enforcement. We have 2 neighbors within, well, we have one that's just a few houses down, and we have another one within walking distance. They both have chickens. We've never, ever had an issue. We've never had an issue with rodents. That being said, in my neighborhood, we have quite an enforcement issue, but not to do with animals. I think it's very unfortunate if we are looking at this as an enforcement issue. That's a leadership issue. So from your leadership and your enforcement, I believe that's where you begin. I am not someone who will have chickens, but I am in full support of our community being able to have them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Benke. I wanted to thank the city staff and members of the Planning Commission that came out to Judge Anzalone's house and kind of got a Chicken 101 seminar not too recently. And I strongly encourage the Planning Commission to endorse the ordinance. Since the creation of this idea about 7 months ago, true to lawmaking and ordinance making, this is similar to making sausage. It's just not a pretty process. But what the commission does have before them is a solid ordinance. It places strong regulations on the topic. So as we recall, this only allows owner-occupied properties to have chickens. So that cuts from 100% of the homes in Adrian to 50% right there. And then from that, the addition of the ordinance of property over 10,000 square feet, which then cuts that down even further considerably. So when we look at this process, this isn't, some people who are in favor of chickens obviously are pushed out because they're a renter, because they live in too small of a lot. So that will help address some of the issues and some of the concerns. That obviously doesn't address all the issues and all the concerns of Mr. Kennedy and other people who don't want chickens. But I think when you look at the overall ordinance that we have here, this is the art of politics, in that this is a good compromise, that this allows the larger lots that are owner occupied for the rule following people that want to follow the rules and raise food for their family, participate in the civic process here, and move forward. As was previously stated, there are lots of examples of other cities across Michigan that are solid economic growth. Traverse City, Northville, Ann Arbor, all of Ingham County allows chickens, East Lansing, and those are economic opportunities to embrace that. And I encourage the Planning Commission to look at that positive piece, in addition to what Mrs. Roberts said about encouraging the 4-H perspective, so that our children, our students in the city of Adrian have the opportunity to participate with raising chickens and being part of that. So again, I strongly encourage this very solid ordinance to move forward for the city commission to vote on.
Thank you, Robert. Folks, we're going to go back to commissioner discussion. And at this point, as you know, this came to us from the city commission. They asked us to consider this and to draft an ordinance. The question will be is what in what form of action do we wish to take on this? I would suggest that we could either recommend, we could take an action to recommend that the adoption of the ordinance as drafted. The alternative is to recommend that they not adopt an ordinance of any kind. Commissioners, discussion.
Well, while I'm not a big fan of chickens personally, as pretty much anybody who knows me will tell you, not a farm animal person. I live in the city. I am one of the people that I live in the city for a reason. I don't want to be around it. And obviously I've heard a lot of people telling me personally that they're not a fan of it either. But that being said, I did go do the chicken coop tour. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, so I can say that much. But more of the position that I feel like I'm in here is I almost feel like we need to make a recommendation to the city council with the ordinance that we've obviously talked a lot about and thought through. Just because if we just say flat out no, then the city commission could still do it anyway. And then what happens to all the thought and the planning that we've put into this? Because ultimately, it really doesn't matter what we say, they can still do whatever they want to anyway. And I kind of feel like I would rather have some very stringent rules in place than to just say nothing at all.
Well, Krista, maybe another option would be to say, okay, here's the draft, here's an ordinance that we have discussed in depth. We've taken public comment on it. We think it's a good ordinance. And again, I'm not necessarily advocating for this position, but simply that, and we could say, here it is. Our recommendation is to either adopt it or not adopt it.
And I honestly feel more comfortable with that because, like I said,
well, no, I meant we would make a recommendation that you adopt this, or here it is, and our recommendation is that you don't adopt it. You know, that
okay. Okay.
But nonetheless, we've worked on it. We've taken public comment. We think this, if you're going to do it, we think this is a good ordinance. And again, either of those are options for us, I would suggest.
Okay.
What is let's say hypothetically, we vote it down.
Yep.
City commission next meeting says, tough, we're going to allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just coming back to us to write the ordinance to send back to them? I mean, we just going around.
I would suggest that we send them the ordinance that we send them the ordinance as drafted, and maybe we need to decide how we're, what the gist of the body is here. Are we in favor of this or are we not in favor of this?
Just hold on, Greg. What's the answer to that question?
Yeah, so this is your opportunity. If you recall, the city commission actually initiated this ordinance, and so they sent you a draft, which you've now modified. And when it comes back to them, you must make a recommendation, one way or the other, about the ordinance as they drafted it or the ordinance as you now recommend it. When it comes back to them, they'll either approve it or disapprove it. It won't ever come back to you.
Or they can rewrite it too, for that matter.
Correct. They could also make further modifications, but it won't come back to the planning commission another time.
No.
Unless they refer it back because they want you to think about something.
Commissioners, other commissioner comment? If there are no additional commissioner comments, we would entertain a motion relative to this ordinance.
I move we adopt the resolution as written.
We have a motion from Commissioner Taylor to adopt the resolution, which is to recommend this ordinance to the city commission. Is there support for that motion?
Support Weatherby.
Okay. An affirmative vote, a majority affirmative vote will send this forward to the city commission with a recommendation for them to adopt it. A negative vote would, we'll come back to that. This is the motion that's on the floor, so we won't go into that. Okay. Jeremy, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Gauss?
Gordon, you there?
No. Watson?
No.
Weatherby?
Support.
Cotton?
Support.
Johnson?
Support.
Taylor?
Yes.
Jacobitz?
No.
And Love?
No.
Motion dies 4-4.
Okay. Motion dies. So we won't be sending that with a recommendation for them to adopt it. I always feel it's necessary for us to take some kind of affirmative action, however. So we would entertain an alternative motion in this case that would recommend to the city commission that the ordinance not be adopted.
So moved.
From Commissioner Love, is there support?
Or
from Watson?
You've got to say that again.
This is a motion to recommend to the city commission that this ordinance not be adopted, that they not permit chickens in the city. Greg, I can
What's
tell
the
by the look on
difference?
your face.
what's the difference, Mike, that we
What's the
already did?
difference?
I think
Yeah,
it's going to turn out the same, and a tie vote is not a recommendation for
Right.
approval, but it is an action that
Yes. Okay.
that, will be reported to the city commission.
Okay. So leave it as is.
I'd like
So
to.
are you rescinding your motion, Mike, then?
Can I ask Greg a
Yes.
question? Is it
Gordon?
possible that we would take this particular motion and vote on it, and someone would change their vote so that it was no longer a 4-4 tie? And we would make a recommendation to not take action on or not approve the,
Well,
that would be my only reason for thinking we ought to vote the opposite side of it.
mm-hmm.
I struggle with the idea of recommending not to do something that the city commission already referred to you to review and make a recommendation on. The text came to you, it was modified. You voted on that text, and that was tied. So it goes, in my experience, that goes forward as no recommendation. But
That's okay.
you can certainly make any motions that you want, and they'll be reported duly to the city commission. But I think in the normal process of considering zoning ordinance amendments, the amendment is proposed, planning commission votes on a recommendation, votes on recommending it, and it either passes or it doesn't.
Okay.
I
Very well.
rescind my motion.
So Greg, the commission could take this up again, right?
They
Oh.
will.
Okay.
Either way.
Go forward to them regardless.
So would we not forward to them what we feel is the best version of?
I think that's what we have.
Yeah, we'll forward the draft that you have worked on.
Right.
Okay. We're ready to move on then. Next item on our agenda, case number 21003, an ordinance amendment relative to accessory buildings and uses. Commissioners, you have a copy of the draft of this. And again, Jeremiah, thank you for the work that went into this. Commissioners, any general discussion on this? This is, as I think you're aware, the ZBA has been dealing with a number of requests for variances, in that the current ordinance only permits a accessory structure of 100 square feet. And what Jeremy and what we've discussed last month was a formula that would permit the size to vary based on a dimension of the lot. I would suggest, and I discussed this with Jeremy, if you look at paragraph O on the second page, I think it should read, right right after it says, after the red strikeout, no greater than 100 feet, I think this should read, one tool/garden shed, the total square footage of which shall be determined by the rear lot line times the, we needed some more verbiage in there to make it a complete sentence.
Mr. Chair, I would add one word there that you should say determined by the width of the rear lot line, because it doesn't really, it just says by the rear lot line. We've used width in previous versions.
Okay. And I also suggested, and Jeremy suggested that it would not be a formal part of the ordinance, but I suggested there be a footnote with a formulaic example. If your rear lot line is this long and you are entitled to a accessory building of this square footage.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. First of all, Jeremy, thank you. You've done a lot of great work on this. We use accessory structures and accessory buildings interchangeably here. I don't know whether that's a problem, but I think we ought to use one or the other. It's accessory structures is in
Building.
item L, O, and P, and it's buildings in every other one. So
I think we should use buildings.
I agree. Thank you.
One other thing to discuss is Mike had brought up to me if we have pie-shaped lots or dogleg lots. And Greg and I did some discussion, and would you guys be comfortable with putting in there that, I would have to word this properly, but if one of those were to come up, we would use the average of the front and rear lot line width for that property. So let's say they have a large front lot line, but a small back one, and vice versa. Would you be comfortable with that going in there? That we would use it.
I think so. I think that makes sense.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
I'm not quite sure how you write that up, Jeremiah, but I understand the concept. Yeah. Other discussion, commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this proposed ordinance relative to accessory buildings?
Hi, Glenn Preston, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Adrian.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Mike. So the issue with the buildings, and I haven't read the ordinance, but accessory structures actually include pools, fences, and all kinds of other things. So if Jeremy has separated those, then I'm fine with that. But if not, then I think we need to keep the term structures versus buildings. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could jump in.
Please do.
So Glenn, we added accessory uses. That's going to be 4.341. And that's going to take care of fences, pools, campers, any kind of other structures that are not a building. So we can put structure in that part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Then that was part of the task here, was to separate those items out. So
it's separated into a subsection of 3.4.
So now we have actually two sections of this ordinance, one labeled accessory buildings and another one labeled accessory uses. And that includes pools, travel trailers, motorhomes, open storage, recreational vehicles, things like that. Okay. Anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this proposed ordinance? Not as much interest in this as there was in chickens, I guess. Okay.
Move to approve as presented.
Support. Taylor.
Is that
or with changes?
With changes?
With changes, I'm sorry, correct.
With
Yes,
the changes that we discussed.
Watson moves to approve with the changes discussed.
Okay. And
Support.
Taylor supports that. Okay. And Jeremy, you got the changes, the verbiage in paragraph O, the change of structures to building. And you're going to add something about odd shaped lots.
And I'll send that verbiage for that. And just see.
Okay.
Very
well.
But yes, I can also watch the video again to see what you say.
Okay, so we have a motion in support for adoption of this ordinance as altered just now. Any additional discussion? And again, as in the chicken ordinance, the action taken will be in the form of a recommendation to the city commission. Jeremiah, if we could have the roll call vote, please.
Yes, Watson,
Support.
Johnson,
Support.
Cotton,
Yes.
Gauss,
Yes.
Taylor,
Support.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
and Weatherby.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, very well, thank you. Next item on the agenda is case number 21004, 1222 East Maumee Street, a rezoning request from industrial to a planned unit development for mixed use and living. I believe that Mr. Bunshu is with us. Jim, I see you there. We have a fair amount of documentation from the city staff here, but in order to make sure everyone's up to speed, if you could very briefly tell us what it is you're proposing to do.
Yes, this is Jim Bunshu. 1222 East Maumee is the former Lenawee Tire. I purchased the building with the intention of converting it to the bay areas, 3 bays, to a welded sculpture studio. The front showroom area will become a gallery, and then the back portion where all the offices were will become a 3-bedroom apartment residence for myself and my 2 kids. I'm a sculptor. I'm a retired MSP detective sergeant, but I've been a sculptor for the past 40 years. I currently have a studio at the Adrian Center for the Arts. So I intend to turn it into a sculpture business and also a gallery to sell retail sculpture and artwork out of and live in the back. So it'll be my residence. That's the gist of it. Outside, I guess I should explain the parking area that's there will become a sort of an outdoor sculpture park so that it's not just an empty park. I plan to put raised planters in the parking area so that it'll, for one, beautify the property instead of just being an empty looking parking lot. I'd like it to have a park feel at that corner. So that's the intention and the plan in a nutshell.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Bunshu? Thank you, Jim. We should probably throw a comment in here that normally the planned unit development process is fairly extensive and somewhat convoluted. And the expectation is that the developer would come to the planning commission with a preliminary plan. They would get feedback from us, and then they would come back with yet another plan for final approval. This being a fairly simple, as far as I know, there's no changes to the exterior, footprint of the building that's already sits there. There is some landscaping changes, but I think staff has tried to simplify the process here as much as possible while still adhering to the requirements of the ordinance. Jeremy, did we receive any written comments or phone comments on this? This is in the form of a zoning change. And so again, it'll be in the form of a recommendation to the city commission.
No, we didn't. And I just want to elaborate a little bit on what you're saying. So I know what I wrote you guys was pretty long. It's pages with question and answers. I gave you 2 resolutions. One resolution is the process is to pass it as a preliminary plan, which you guys have seen. And if you're comfortable with his plan that he's presented, I've given you a second resolution to move it on to the city commission for them to approve the final development plan. This isn't a plane wave situation where we have tons of utilities going everywhere. It's a pretty straightforward project. So if you're comfortable, I want to stress that if you're comfortable with it, there's 2 resolutions for you to adopt. And I've written them hopefully that you can just move those resolutions or adjust them as you see fit. And another thing I want to point out is part of a plan unit development is the open space requirement. And Jim's come up with a pretty creative way to put planters in there to create a green space. And I added that into the packet. I hope you guys saw that. And that's the area he's talking about. So just if you have any questions, feel free to ask me on it, because I know it's a lot of stuff we had to go through. It's 20 questions, I think.
Mr.
Well,
Chair,
and
if I could add to that a little bit. So the process contemplated by the ordinance is like a stepped process where additional information is added after you approve the plan and concept. But because essentially everything here is built, there is no need to go through those 2. There is a need to go through the 2 steps, but essentially the plan he has is adequate for the final step. And so rather than make him come to a subsequent meeting to do the final step, we've combined them into one proposed action tonight. And then with respect to the open space, the reason for doing, I don't know if anybody stated the reason for doing the planters as opposed to creating green space, but this is a formerly contaminated site. And so part of the closure requirements is that it stay paved. And so as a way to accomplish the intent of the ordinance without disturbing the pavement, he came up with the planter idea, which is a pretty neat idea in my estimation.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this proposed change in zoning? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of this particular matter. Usually when we do a change in zoning, which is what this is, we need to consider what identifiable conditions related to the application have changed and would justify the proposed change in zoning. Would this create any precedences that would be created by either approving or denying the request? What is the impact on the ability of the city and other governmental units to provide adequate public services? Does the requested change negatively affect any environmental conditions or the value of surrounding properties? And what is the ability of the property in question to be put to a reasonable economic use as it is presently zoned? I would suggest that the proposed changes with the planned unit development are an improvement of this property, and that because of its long use as a gas station, it probably would be difficult to use it as anything else without going to extensive expense. That there's no impact on the city's ability to provide services or utilities. That the requested change does not negatively affect the environmental conditions or the value of surrounding properties. And that this would be a plus in terms of the economic use of the property. Commissioners, any objections to any of those findings? If there are none, we would entertain a motion for adoption of the first, where'd it go here? Just a minute. There we go. The resolution related to the preliminary development plan. We have got two resolutions before us. One to accept, I can tell by the scowl on Greg's face that he's thinking otherwise here. But we have two resolutions before us. One to accept this as a preliminary, approve this as a preliminary plan. So we've entertained a motion to that effect.
Watson.
And
Support.
Motion by Watson, support from Taylor. Any discussion? Hey, Jeremiah, a roll call vote for that, please.
Johnson,
Support.
Cotton,
Support.
Gauss,
Yes.
Taylor,
Support.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
Weatherby,
Support.
and Watson.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. And as Greg and Jeremy explained just a few minutes ago, normally there would be a lapse here and the applicant would come back to us with changes that we had suggested for a final development plan. We have a resolution in front of us for approval of the final development plan. And again, this would be in the form of a recommendation to the city commission that the zoning be changed, approval of the plan that the zoning be changed from light industrial to a planned unit development. And we would entertain a motion for adoption of that resolution.
So moved.
Approval.
Watson and Johnson.
He was Love and Taylor.
I think it was Johnson.
Taylor and Johnson, sorry, yes.
Johnson and Taylor, yeah.
Johnson.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Okay. Jeremiah, roll call, please.
Taylor,
Yes.
Gauss,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
Weatherby,
Support.
Johnson,
Support.
Watson.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, Jim, this is a recommendation to the city commission and that we'll need to wait for their final approval of it. So good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adrian.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a couple of comments on this issue. When Jim brought this to us a few months ago, I think we were all pretty excited about the reuse of this property. And I know that there have been some hills and valleys and ups and downs throughout this process. I want to take my hat off to Jim and to the city staff for working through this. This is the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that we ought to have all the time. And I'm just really proud of the fact that we made this happen. Jim, we didn't make it happen, you did, but thank you all for working together on this. There's lots of things around town where we can do this. So let's keep our thinking hats on and be creative. It's 2021.
Okay, thank you, Don. Next item on our agenda is case number 21008, 307 East Beach, or a zoning exception and site plan consideration for a marijuana dispensary. God, this sounds very familiar. Haven't we been here before? Jeremiah, maybe you'd want to give a little preliminary comments on this as to where this has been and why it's back here.
So I'm sure we remember this coming. It was initially a rezoning. It would have been a split and a rezoning. Because in our ordinance, we don't allow dispensaries to abut against residential. As you know, the city commission denied that rezoning, and splitting the property and meeting the requirements of that size property. The property was split and it's been sold off, so he no longer owns an adjoining property to residential. So that's why it's back in front of you now. I have gone over the site plan with him extensively. He's done everything I've asked of him as far as ripping out pavement, and I haven't gotten any pushbacks on that.
You know, part of me says we approved this once.
We approved it in the form of the rezoning, but not in the form of the zoning exception.
You recommended approval of the rezoning to parking district that would have accomplished the same thing that the land division accomplished in this instance, but the city commission turned down that rezoning.
But my point being is that did we not already approve a zoning exception for this?
You couldn't do it until they approved that rezoning.
Okay.
So once he relinquished control, once he relinquished that property, he no longer owns it. He no longer is contiguous to that residential property, meaning he no longer is abutted to it. So he's meeting the ordinance at this point. You know, this brings up something that I think we should talk about eventually, of the placements of buildings versus the lot lines and all that kind of stuff, but that may be a discussion for a different time. But in this particular case, he is meeting all the requirements.
Mike,
Your mic's dead again, Mike.
Sorry, I keep leaning on the little button next to it there.
Lean on the button.
Yeah, well, it's easier said than done. I'm on my wife's desk. It's smaller than I'm what I used to here. So, Mr. Lofton, do you want to very briefly tell us what it is you're proposing to do here?
Yes, sir. I am requesting to have this a special zoning exception permit so I can have this facility turned into a dispensary. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
And normally, we need to consider if the proposed use meets any specific requirements. We'll get to those in just a second. Would granting the zoning exception permit have an adverse effect on the environment or the values of surrounding properties? Is the proposed use compatible with adjacent and surrounding properties? And is the proposed use consistent with the city's future land use plan? Commissioners, your discussion? You know, my concern is if we approve this, you know, I think I got the impression the city commission turned this down because they thought it was an end around on the ordinance. Are we going to face the same thing? Do we have any feedback from them on this?
Well, this wouldn't go to them. This stays at the planning
You're right.
commission because it's
Good
not
point.
rezoning.
Good point.
I mean, I think you're characterizing their action correctly. I don't know that it was only that they thought it was an end around. And Commissioner Gauss can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were also concerns about that application of the parking district. In this case, this land division has been effectuated. We gave you a copy of the deed, which is in your packet. There's a separate LLC that now owns the 50-foot strip that's north of this site. You know, that land continues to be zoned B2 as this site was. There's no minimum lot size and no minimum lot width in the B2 district. It is a theoretically buildable parcel in that you know, the side yard setbacks don't overlap. So, you know, you could build a gizzard shack there or something, I guess, but you know, it's technically compliant.
Okay. Don, what is your plan for that new lot? Do you still own the lot? If not in name, but in fact?
Can you repeat that question, sir?
Do you? I realize that the split lot, the lot to the north, has been sold. Do you still have control over it?
Do I still have control of it? I sold it to LLC.
Yep. Is it your LLC or your girlfriend's or your wife's or your brother's or something like that?
Yes, it's my son's LLC.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I was just curious as to what the disposition of that parcel is going to be.
Yeah. So just to be a parking lot still. So we'll put some green space there, put the arborvitaes to split it off and separate it.
So, I mean, this is kind of the question then, is it going to be a parking lot or is it going to be green space?
Mike, this really has nothing to do with that. This is about a zoning exception permit for a marijuana dispensary, and he meets the criteria now. You know, though it's a different way, it's still, it's split off, it's B2 on both sides. It's not about what he's going to do with that.
Well, it is if in fact it becomes in practice if in practice, it's part of the marijuana facility in practice, whether it be in name or not, I'm not sure it's certainly in the spirit of the ordinance.
Yeah, I would say it cannot be part of the marijuana facility. I'm not sure parking
Yeah.
would be, parking that would be required for this facility would not be an allowable use of that site. In fact, parking in general, since the only parking could be for this facility, wouldn't be an allowable use of that lot. It's gonna have green space.
Yeah.
But it's not our, at this point, that would be a building department question. Like, that's not what we're talking, that's not what our point of this right now is.
Well, it is, Brian, to the extent that we've got an ordinance that says marijuana facilities cannot abut a residential property. And if the only point of splitting this off is an end around of that requirement, and there's still going to be parking there, and the marijuana customers are going to park on that property.
There'll be no parking, sir. It's
Oh,
grass.
okay, it's just going to be grass. Okay, well, that's why I was Don. That's why I was asking.
Yes,
That's
sir.
why I was asking is how you're going to use that property.
Mr. Chair, he also ripped all that pavement out, and he took down part of the old bank's overhang.
Awning,
awning that was there. And I suggested to him splitting that off using some sort of vegetation, and he put in arborvitaes to separate those two parcels. So
okay,
It looks like there's plenty of landscaping along that edge.
That's,
and
that's what I was getting at. I just wanted to clarify that. So
yeah, I should.
How would the property to the east be addressed if that's residential abutting the proposed property?
It's
You got
used,
a house on
but
Ted,
it's
but
not
it's not zoned residential.
What's
Yeah,
that?
it's not
There's a
zoned
house on it,
residential.
But it's not zoned residential.
Me too.
Okay.
Well, let me put my 2 cents in, Mike. As Greg alluded to, I was a good person to talk about it because I certainly was leading the charge as an issue of what I thought was skirting, the ordinance. And I was not a big favor, was not in favor of the P1 designation. Maybe I didn't understand it, but I know that it looked like, as you had alluded to, that it was just a scam. And then I started hearing a lot about other people, other businesses in the same industry wanting or saying that, hey, if you do it here, I want it on my place too. So there was this whole kind of snowball effect that was moving forward. As Commissioner Watson says, what he's doing here is completely legal now. I mean, I got nothing to complain about. I think going about it the right way, we don't need to worry about him. If he's meeting the rules, then it needs to be approved. That's my position on it. So I'm the guy that had the problem in the last go around. So I don't have it anymore, for whatever that's worth to anybody.
And Gordon, neither do I. I just wanted to assure ourselves that,
Right.
that we were in fact doing just what you're saying. So
I have a quick question for Jeremiah. Jeremiah, in this process, the parking can be addressed in the site plan, correct? The parking recommendation?
Yes. So
Okay.
you could still approve the zoning exception and then deal with the parking. I was
Okay.
going to bring that up during the site plan.
And although we have been doing those together, this is not going to be done together tonight, correct? There's no site plan?
There is a site plan.
Yeah.
I sent it to Michelle. She can bring it up.
So there is a site plan to do after this?
yes.
Okay,
Yes, there
that's what I
is.
make sure. I'm just looking at the packet. You're good.
Okay, considering the zoning exception permit, the chair would opine that the criteria for a zoning exception permit has been met, and that if we so chose, we could approve the zoning exception permit. Did I ask already if there was anybody in the audience that wishes to address the planning commission on this matter? Jeremy, did we receive any phone calls or written comments on this?
No, we did not.
Okay. With that said, if we were so inclined,
I move to approve.
Support.
okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Love and support from Commissioner Cotton for adoption of the resolution approving the zoning exception permit for 307 East Beecher Street. Any additional discussion? Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Yep. Cotton,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
Weatherby,
Support.
Johnson,
Or
Watson,
Or
Gauss.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, then on to the site plan for the same property. And do we have that, Michelle, to put up on the screen?
Should be 307 East Beecher, Michelle.
There we go. Don, do you want to walk us through this very briefly?
So where are we at?
You
Okay.
can ask for that to
Oh,
go
that's-
around if you want.
That's the markup one. That's not the correct one.
Not the correct document or not the correct?
It's not the
View.
correct document. That's a marked up version.
This is
Okay.
the only one
I
that I
know.
have, Jeremy.
I know. Will it load quickly if I get you one?
Yeah, I can try if you want to send it to me.
Yep.
while we're waiting.
Yes.
Greg, could you explain to me the whole deal with the parking? I didn't quite understand. Like, he has too much parking? Isn't this the one that has too much parking on it?
Oh, were you asking me?
Yeah. Jeremiah's working on finding it out, so.
Yeah.
Can somebody explain to me the deal that it's got too much?
Yeah, we only allow up to 120% of your required parking. So given the history of this facility, it has far more parking than is needed for a small retail store on the site. And I don't recall what Jeremy recommended in that regard, but he is well over what is allowed. And I mean, to some degree, ideally in those circumstances, what we'd like to see is not that the, just striping be removed, but that the pavement, if the pavement is unnecessary, that pavement be removed.
And Greg, didn't we have a similar circumstance with Loom? And we gave them an exception that they could prove they needed it. What was the outcome of that?
I thought we actually had to ask them to rip up the concrete or to rip up the asphalt.
Well, I thought, because they said they could study to prove it. Did they prove it or did they?
Well, ultimately, you had them rip that up because they had 30 or 40 spots there. This place, we're talking, they have 10 spots.
Okay.
And they're still 200% over. But at the Loom property, the rear parking was ripped out and the dumpster was placed in that location, if I remember correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, if it's going to be a problem, I have I have the site plan up on my computer if I could share.
That'll probably be faster. Hang on, I'll give you permission.
Okay. First, I got to find it again. Just a minute. There we go. And then back to Zoom meeting, share screen. There we go. Share. Okay. So if I understand correctly, you're going to remove the drive-through awning that was on the bank building.
Partially.
And this part is going to be, now this is this the new lot line here?
No, go down one more page, Mike.
The
Go down one more page?
Yep. There you go. That's the actual site plan.
Okay. So this is the new lot line here,
Yes.
Right.
and we're
No.
going to landscape.
North of the arborvitae's is, I believe,
Oh, right there.
line of lot 4.
Okay, so this is the new lot line here.
Yep.
And we're going to landscape this area here. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Are you going to take the awning off entirely?
No, we took partial of it down.
And what are we going to use the awning for?
Canopy, just coverage.
Okay, because you realize you can't have a drive-through facility.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
There's signage that indicate one-way traffic though, and striping that would indicate that may be intended for use as a drive-through.
Yeah.
Those striping is to keep the traffic flowing one direction.
Mm-hmm.
There's signage to prevent them to go to the east. That's indicated on the one-way do not enter to prevent them to go to the east. And the traffic flow would be to the west, as the striping indicates.
The curb cuts remain the same as they are now?
Yes, some of these are existing, and then to the east of the property, it's new that you're recommending we put there. And also on the Division Street side, all that's going to be parking removed and green space added with curb.
Okay. Okay. Jeremy, other comments on the site plan?
No.
No? Okay. Pretty straightforward?
I'll say the canopy, in the future, if drive-through is ever allowed, I suppose, but they're not gonna be allowed to use that for drive-through.
Right.
So I've allowed it to stay.
I didn't notice that it stipulated in the letter that he submitted on July 15th, where the canopy would be down 90 days after the approval in August, that it stipulated a portion of the canopy.
That would be the one that they removed, the third one, the farthest north one.
Okay. Other questions relative to the site plan? Donna, you're not changing the facade of the building.
Say that again? No, sir.
No, the exterior of the building is going to look pretty much the way it does now.
Currently, yes. If we do it, we'll bring it back in before you.
Okay. Commissioners, other questions or comments on the site plan? Jeremy, were there any contingencies on this?
I had one more thing, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
We're on the photometric plan 5 of 8. Were there going to be any additional lighting provided for that northeast corner?
Can I jump in? Can I jump in for you, Don? This is Todd Brown with Manikin Smith.
Yes, sir.
So at this point, there was nothing added just to protect the residents and the parcels to the north and to the east. So to keep that dark sky, there's the only new light pole that's going to be replaced in kind is the one that's at the south drive, the southeast corner of that property, but it'll be replaced in kind. It was run into by a vehicle at some point.
Okay, I thought that might be the case. I just saw a lot of zeros for lumens in those areas as it cut across that northeast corner.
Jeremy, were there any contingencies on site plan approval?
Just the parking.
Just the parking, okay.
Could I also just address real quick the reason that we're requesting that additional parking, just so it makes sense to everybody? The The parking, Mike, if you could go to the cover sheet.
Okay,
So the requirements for this facility, I believe, is 1 for every 300 square feet, which would be 4 4 parking spaces. There will be 5.
sorry.
No, that's okay. So if you
Okay.
if you could zoom over to the right-hand side in those notes, I know it's kind of difficult to navigate through in this PDF. But the zoning requirements for parking are in here. And we do understand that we are requesting additional spaces. So it's 1 space per 300 square foot of building, which would be 5 spaces. What we're saying is we absolutely need a van accessible space, an ADA space, but also there's going to be 4 employees. So we're looking for the 4 additional. Now we started out with 34 spaces on the site. We're drastically reducing that, understanding that we're still requesting this addition.
Jeremiah, are we okay with the proposal as presented here relative to parking?
Will you go back to the other page, the site plan page, and I'll show you what I recommended them to do.
The
compromise.
So it'd be page 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you go left side of the sheet, so where the green space is on the west side, that's actually parking as it is now. And that's getting ripped out, curbing put in. So this was the last time that I had spoke with them about conforming in the best way they can, but also meeting landscaping requirements. And this was the solution that I suggested to them. So the 10 spaces make sense. I mean, Todd's right that you can't have 5 with 4 employees, and you would just have people randomly parking places. So I think it's a fair request, and they did remove the other ones without hassle. So
okay,
will with your permission.
With that said, folks, first of all, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on the site plan proposal for 1,222 East Maumee Street?
307.
307.
I'm sorry, yes, excuse me, wrong one. Just got done with that one. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we would entertain a motion for approval of the site plan.
Approval of the site plan with the additional space.
We have a motion in support, and Brian, that was, your motion was approval of the site plan with what?
With the extra space with the extra parking spaces.
Okay, okay. And Don, your support is for that motion?
For that motion, yes.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call then.
Weatherby,
Support.
Love,
Yes.
Kobitz,
Yes.
Johnson,
Support.
Watson,
Support.
Taylor,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
and Gauss.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you.
Don, best of luck with that.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on our agenda is a discussion item relative to 220 North Main Street. The owner would like to discuss with us facade improvement materials. As you know, we've adopted a form-based ordinance for the downtown area. And just like when we dealt with the Catherine Cobb building not too long ago, we have a few buildings on the periphery of the downtown area that probably are not historically or architecturally contributing to the neighborhood. But so is the owner of 220 North Main Street with us?
See his
220
name.
North Main Street.
Benjamin Leonard.
He was here earlier. I
He's
saw.
here, it's muted.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh,
Lost internet
okay.
connection just as this started.
Of
Looks like I'm
course.
still spotty.
Mr. Leonard, if you would tell us what it is that you'd like to be considered for. What is it you want?
Oh, come on. I'm hoping this is going to stay connected. This internet.
We can hear you.
Clearly.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Your video's a little choppy. Your video's a little choppy, but your audio is working. So.
All right. So
this is the building that's across from Raymond Ford, the old Raymond Ford building, correct?
Yes.
Immediately south of Chomp.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to get context there.
So I'm looking at the siding that's on it. It's currently that shiplap siding in very, very rough condition. Not really worth putting the money into painting it. So I talked to my builder and he suggested doing steel siding down it'd be the north wall and the back, the east wall on the front. And of course we have that doctor's there's a doctor's office that's attached to the south end. So on the east
lawyer's office, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Is there, I thought there was a doctor in there too, but anyway, okay. So the lawyer's office. So on the west wall that faces that Ford, the old Ford building, I'm open to suggestions. I cannot find any old pictures of what that building was in its original state. So I could do steel for now and just to get it looking better. And then when we can find something that shows what that building used to look like, I would be entertained, trying to get into the downtown motif. But the whole north wall and the east wall are kind of unexposed to the rest of the downtown. They're just side walls.
Yes. I suspect.
Did you lose me?
My suspicion is that building has been altered so extensively over the years that the placement of the windows and the doors and all of that is nothing close to what it originally was. Planning commissioners, do you have? I do think we lost Mr. Leonard here. His picture's still there, but that's about it, I think.
I was gonna say, if he turns his video off, his audio may work better. I would try that.
Mr. Leonard, are you still there?
Let me try that.
Yep, that's good. We can hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I can hear you guys.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Planning commissioners, thoughts on this particular building and what kind of, again, like I said, it's not a contributing either in terms of its historic value or its architectural value. I'm not sure it contributes to the downtown in any kind of meaningful manner.
I'd suggest at least giving the archivist at the Historic Museum a couple of hours to do some research. They do, it's amazing what they come up with. So they may be able to find something in terms of photographs and things like that. So it's worth a try. You may or may not get anything.
Yep. Do we have an opinion as to like the north and the east walls, which are not the ones not the street facing walls?
I'd like to see what he's talking about. I mean, there's all kinds of steel siding out there. I mean, is it going to look like a pole barn? Is it going to look like shingle? Like, what's it going to look like?
It'll look like Ace Hardware kitty corner from the old Ace Hardware.
That's what I mean. Yeah, is it going to look like Ace Hardware?
That's not necessarily attractive. Yeah.
I mean, I would speculate that those are brick pilasters that maybe had just been painted, and that diagonal siding and aluminum windows at one time was maybe glass storefront across there originally, without knowing, but.
I think it's a good suggestion. Gordon's suggestion was good to get in touch with the historical museum, because I bet you it's a good chance that they have some earlier photos of that building.
I did send somebody down there to try to get some information, but I personally have not been there. So I can't, I had to take someone else's word for it.
Yeah.
So I'll personally go there and see if we can find anything out.
Well, it's the kind of
Or
thing where
find any
you
pictures.
want to go down to their basement and talk to their archivist and tell them what it is you're looking for and give them a few days to search for it. You know, probably not just standing there waiting for them to get it done, because they're all volunteers down there. But I bet you that they have some earlier photographs of that. And as Mr. Watson said, I think we're open to being flexible on this, but we'd kind of like to see something visual before we gave our approval.
Okay. As far as that north and east wall, it would essentially be it would be barn siding is what I'm proposing with I plan on doing is that drawing on there, Jeremiah? I lose you. Listen, that's
You're muted, Jeremiah.
Hey, Jeremy, is that drawing, that side rendering that?
Yeah, we've got that, but it's just a pencil. It's just an black and white ink drawing. It doesn't really tell us anything.
Well, as far as running a barn style steel siding down the north and the east walls with a wainscot on the bottom just to break it up. That was what I proposed for out there. I mean, that's just it's a huge improvement from what's there now.
Commissioners, this is just a discussion item, but I'd like us to give Mr. Leonard a little bit of direction here. I think we have relative to the front facade. Do we have any kind of direction for him relative to the north and east sides? Do we want to see something specific?
More specific drawings, before we even have a discussion of what, I mean, it could look really nice. It could look very industrial.
I think the drawing we have is in fact the north elevation. If you count the windows on the north elevation and the door in the center, that's
even though it's labeled front elevation, it's the north.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm not sure that tells us a whole lot about the aesthetics of it,
No.
I agree with Commissioner Watson that we need to have a little more specific idea, some real examples of what it would look like. I'm all in favor of what he's suggesting. Just like to see the product.
Yeah, maybe sample material.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that
okay?
Ben, does that
And
give
Jeremy,
you
it does. And Jeremy kind of gave me this direction. I think so, yes.
Okay.
Did that come through?
Yep, kind of. So I hope that's some direction. Do a little bit more research, maybe find some sample materials.
Yes.
And back to us, okay?
Yes. Man, this internet's terrible.
Yeah, I can tell. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda, also a discussion item, is 1853.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
1853 West Maumee Street, which is again, this is for discussion only, a potential rezoning request from B1 to B2. Jeremy, you want to give us a little background on this?
Sure.
I could jump in on this one.
Or Greg, either way, yeah.
There is in fact a rezoning request for this particular parcel, the 1853 West Maumee. We put it on for discussion only because that parcel sits in the middle of a strip of about 1, 2, 3, 4 others. So it's in the middle. There's a strip of 5 parcels that are all zone B1. So you would never zone only the middle parcel B2. That would be spot zoning. And so in order to consider this, I think you really need to discuss whether or not you would be willing to upzone that whole strip of land. And I believe you've got a screenshot of the zoning map or the GIS for that area in your packet. And from that, you can see that surrounding this strip of land are a number of parcels that are in fact zone B2, but this particular strip is zone B1. And I think Jeremy gave you information on what the current comprehensive plan, future land use plan, and the current comprehensive plan designates that area for. I don't think the current zoning is even consistent with that. Obviously, we're working on the new master plan, and we'll have the ability to incorporate whatever decision you make as it relates to this area in the future land use map for that plan.
And this is the property that is the former Brass Lantern, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We would impact, if we did this, a bank, a fairly large office building, a CPA office, and a realtor, an attorney office, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course, now, when they say upzoning, the intent is that for B2 is a more generous. There's more things you can do in B2 than you can in B1.
Yeah, B1 is sort of a local commercial district. It's supposed to, I mean, in theory, the B1 district would be appropriate in those areas that are adjacent to, typically you would think single family residential, or in some sort of a transitional area where you want lower intensity commercial uses, convenience sort of commercial uses. Whereas your B2 district is your general commercial district that has the most commercial uses of any of your 4 business districts.
In the potential purchaser here, or maybe already a purchaser, is intended to, their intent is to put in like a convenience store, gas station.
That's my understanding. I think he is on the Zoom in the meeting here tonight and can speak to that. This was acquired at tax sale. It was a tax auction, and but that's my understanding of what the purchaser's intent is.
That is correct.
And who's speaking, please?
I'm the owner, Rex Christ.
Rex, and so tell us very briefly what your intentions would be here.
We would tear the building down that's there and redo the whole site, put in a gas station, convenience store. We have others. For instance, if you go to 50 and 52, we tore down the old Throttles restaurant that was there and put that station in. We've redone the station up at 12 and 50, where across from the way station there that's been empty for 20 years. We got that up and running. But probably our best one to look at is one we did down at exit 5 of 23 and 223 that sat there for like 25 years, had trees growing out of it, and we redid that into a store, convenience store, gas station. This would not have diesel pumps or diesel for big trucks. We absolutely would not do big truck diesel, which is, some of the people that have asked said, boy, you have enough area there to do big truck diesel. I said, no, that's not what we want. We're not going after that client. We're going after the local people. I live on the west side of Adrian. I go to Wesco and I realize this side of town needs a gas station where people can get in and out of it. Anybody that's goes to Wesco realizes it's a mess getting in and out of there.
Can I speak up?
Who's speaking?
William Restus. I'm at 1813 Wolf Creek Highway.
Okay.
And we got a gas station right down right down on the corner of Sand Creek and Wolf Creek. Why do we need another gas station, within 500 yards of, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
Can you identify yourself for us, please?
Yes, my name is Mark, and I'm currently at 1357 West Maumee Street. So he said the people need another gas station on that side of town. I'm not sure if he knows that the Springs is part of Adrian, the Buddies is part of Adrian, the Mobile on Beecher is part of Adrian, Wesco's part of Adrian. All those gas stations are on the west side of town. If you look at the city of Adrian, we have over 11, 12, 13 gas stations. The community is already going to their local place of convenience store, and he's saying the people need something there. There's already something there. There's already a convenience store there. There's already a convenience store down the street. There's already a convenience store on Maumee, which is Wesco. There's already a convenience store / gas station before Onstead. We have 13, 14 gas stations in the city of Adrian, and I'm a little hesitant about another gas station coming in. I have kids that come here, that go to school here. I'm part of the community. I just feel like another gas station in the area is not something that the people are gonna benefit off of. If he was to say something else besides a gas station and that the people need it, I would understand. I would have to agree. There is no doubt about it. But you have several convenience stores in the area. You also have West Point. You have the Dollar General. You have a lot of convenience store on the west side of town. I tell you what, we are missing on that side of town, and that's just my opinion. When me and my family, we go out to eat locally, we have to wait in line 45 minutes for a sit down, or if we have to go to McDonald's or a KFC, for instance, that has cars backed up into the middle of the road to their next neighbor. I just think the community and the people can use something more than a gas station.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Yes,
Thank
sir. Yes, sir.
Like I said, this is not a formal hearing on this particular matter. This is just a discussion.
Yes, sir. Yes,
for the
sir.
Planning Commission. Planning commissioners, your thoughts on this?
Can somebody tell me, Greg or Jeremiah, what if we were to rezone them to B2, what would be the business that would be like, oh no, we shouldn't have done that to go in there? Like, if we zone it B2 and somebody hears it, they're like, oh, we should go buy all those properties and we could put this on it. Is there some kind of, in a B2 district, what that could be?
Well, those kind of oh no kind of businesses tend to be zoning exception permits. And so, I don't think there are things that could happen by right that you'd be disturbed by.
What would be a typical B2 business? What would go in? I mean,
well, Brian, things that are permitted by right in B2 are post offices, sit-down restaurants and taverns, electricians, plumbers, heating contractors, theaters, churches, concert halls, open air retail sales of plant materials, hotels and motels, a local shopping center, a strip mall, for example. And then
Brian, you're muted, Brian.
yeah, I know. So as it sits right now with the Brass Lantern as a restaurant, it wouldn't be in compliance in a B1 then, right? Or restaurants allowed in B1?
I think restaurants without drive-throughs are allowed in B1.
Yes, they are. But as Greg said,
have the other residents been made aware of this yet or no?
You know, turning that corner from B2 all the way over can potentially draw.
Sir, excuse me. Yeah.
We did send out a notice indicating that this was going to be discussed, but like I said, it's not, we didn't do a public hearing notice.
Well, because we're not
I just
having
want to know if the people at the bank and the other building were aware of what we were talking about.
If Jeremy's still here, he can tell you who he sent it to, but I mean, and just to hone in on the issue for discussion, I mean, the reason we didn't send out a public hearing notice is because in our estimation, if we're going to be able to make any kind of a favorable decision, we would have to recommend all of those parcels. And so before we sent out a notice indicating that they're proposed for rezoning, we wanted to discuss that with the planning commission first.
Greg, generally, we don't do a rezoning when the property owner hasn't requested it. Is that true?
That is generally true, yes. I mean,
and if
this is a kind of a classic circumstance where, you know, you might consider that because one property owner is requesting it and the area, and you determine that the character of the area justifies it.
Mm-hmm.
Did we do that, Greg, on the Marvin Farm property? Did we do a rezoning before the formal request?
Well, no, because we're the owner, so we requested it.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and it would, in my mind, it would kind of depend on what the adjacent property owners feel about it. It may be to their advantage to upzone it. In fact, it probably would be to their advantage for it to be upzoned. But
so what would our next steps be then? Do we go to all the property owners now?
Yeah, our next step would be to send a notice out with all, if you were to agree with that idea, to send a notice out indicating that all of those properties are proposed for rezoning.
Greg, I take it.
I want to make sure they know in that notice what that change will affect, what's allowed and what's not allowed.
All right, so they do get sufficient information when you send that out, right?
Yes.
It's not just, we're going to rezone you to B2 where we're thinking about it. Okay.
No, they'll definitely be getting letters that will have both ordinances, what it means for their property, what it means for the surrounding properties. And then we've also noticed 300 feet within all of those properties since they'd all be rezoned. And I believe I sent out notices for the discussion 300 of all those properties anyway. Yeah.
Jeremy, when we talk to the people who, the adjacent businesses or whatever, if we change the zoning, they'll be grandfathered into whatever they got, wouldn't they?
Oh,
B2 allows everything that off the top of my head, B2 allows everything that B1 allows, so they wouldn't even need grandfather.
So there would be no effect.
Yeah, it's generally in that fashion. So, you know, I2 allows what I1 allows and stuff like that. So they wouldn't need a grandfather necessarily. If they do, it will definitely be in my report, and we will definitely look at it. But as far as those are, no.
No, B2 allows B2 permits everything that's permitted in B1. So.
Got it.
I think Mr. Lucas is asking to be recognized.
I'm sorry?
Good evening. How are you? I just wanted to let you know that there are other individuals that would like to, make comment on this, but because of the fact that this is not a public hearing, I'm not going to burden with that tonight. I just wanted so that you're aware of the fact that there is concern about this beyond what you're hearing right now, but because this was just an informational meeting for your planning commission, I did not want to lengthen this meeting for that purpose at this time. You guys are here late enough as it is, as unfortunately am I. But the bottom line is that if and when we get to that point where you have a public hearing, I didn't want to leave you with the impression that there was no opposition to this from any of the adjoining property owners. So I'll leave it at that for now and just hope that I'll address that at the time of the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, like I said, that would be my biggest concern is the opinion of the adjoining property owners and what impact the change would have on their properties. That's, in my mind, that's going to be the big deciding factor. Other thoughts?
May I speak in just real quickly, I guess?
Okay.
My name is Eric Carr, resident of Adrian, 1157 Sand Creek Highway. Been there for a while. So yeah, we have two gas stations, adjacent from each other on the same road there. It's just, to me, with the residents, it's pollution, noise pollution, and all that. Well, here's some thoughts that I got from another who wanted me to share this on today's. His name is Jerry Strayer. He's a neighbor of 5581 West US 223. He wanted me to share a little bit of his thoughts regarding the rezoning of the property currently known as the Brass Lantern. So his first things were, why are we considering rezoning of the Brass Lantern property? And are we doing that as a serious community? Rezoning does not comply with the current short-term or long-term zoning objectives. It is a concern that the prior zoning commission got it wrong, or do we think that the rezoning for a service station at this site is in the best interest of the city and residents? The BP station on the corner of the Wolf Creek and Sand Creek in the US 223 is only 100 yards away and has not been challenged to meet the public needs, even in the peak periods of traffic, when there is a function even at the Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn. The reasoning or rezoning to allow another service station at this location would be a challenge to a successful investment for both sides. A detrimental effect would be to residents at the Carriage House Apartments due to a loss of privacy at their home residencies on the south side of this property. Additionally, there would be a concern for the safety of the LCS students. They're across the street wanting to cross the US 223 during their lunch break for wanted treats and stuff. And having friends who have kids in that school, I wouldn't want them crossing that street whatsoever. Especially when there's no light, no traffic there, you know what I mean? There's really nothing there for protection of people crossing. Additionally, can we assume that the consideration of rezoning is due to the inability to attract a preferred business for that location? The fact that the property has not been developed for several years is not in itself a reason to rezone. Perhaps a more aggressive effort through use of a professional service would expedite utilization of this prime property. Common sense tells us that we could and should be able to do better and for all that is concerned. And I'm just gonna end it right there. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, can I correct him real quick? It's not a service station where we're going to be working on cars or anything like that. It's a convenience store, gas station. It's not a service station.
And folks,
and it's been for sale, and it's been for sale for 20 years, and nobody's doing anything. We're offering to put $1.6 million into it and improve the area.
Yeah, and folks, on one hand, I don't want to cut anybody off, but on the other hand, if in fact this does come before us as a formal request for, when this gets on the agenda as a formal request for rezoning, we will have to hear all of this again. So I just soon not have to hear it all twice. And I don't mean to suggest any prejudice for or against the proposal, but just that this is an opportunity for the planning
I
commission
think
to
we
have
need
a
to move on
discussion.
and just send it to meeting. It needs to be on the agenda for something, and we need to have this discussion because
Right, right.
I
much to
agree.
my surprise, there's opinions very strongly on both sides.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what our goal tonight is to determine whether you would like us to propose a rezoning for the entire strip and notify the property owners accordingly of a public hearing for February.
Well, Greg, clearly we cannot consider rezoning simply that one parcel. That isn't going to happen. And so the only way to consider this would be the entire strip.
That was our assessment, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then let's get that done.
Okay, we'll do that for your next meeting.
February. Okay. Any other business to come before us this evening?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, I believe our consultants have requested a special meeting on January 28th to discuss their ongoing efforts on our master plan. Wonder if you would be willing to call a special meeting for that evening.
Gee, it would be nice. It's nice to have heard from them.
We thought so.
That's a Thursday.
Yes, sir.
And an evening meeting, a 6:30, 7 o'clock kind of thing.
I think you could specify the time that was to your liking.
Commissioners, I do want us to move on this. This has been dragged out way too long.
Let's do it. The 28th.
People generally
Okay.
available?
Yes.
Okay.
7 PM.
Chad, you're good with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Everyone?
Yes.
In which case, let us have a motion to set a special meeting for Thursday, January 28th at 7 PM.
Motion
Move.
to, oh, sorry,
Motion.
motion to have a special meeting.
Okay, from Cotton with support from Johnson.
Support, yeah.
All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Any other business to come before us this evening? I would note that Jeremy mentioned while we were discussing, I think it was the Lofton property. No. One of the discussions this evening, Jeremy suggested, as it stands currently, and I don't know if this is by ordinance or simply by practice, when we say you have to be at least 300 feet apart for a particular kind of business, currently that's measured from property line to property line. Jeremy has suggested that maybe it would behoove us and would give us some more flexibility if it was from building to building or facility to facility. I'm not sure. I was under the impression that the property line to property line was kind of standard operating procedure. But Greg is shaking his head no. So
So the Liquor Control Commission, who uses that rule for various purposes, measures it in a very particular way, and it is from more or less from building to building, but it's also from building out to the street, down the street, and to the nearest whatever facility that you're trying to measure from. And a lot of communities adopt that protocol because the LCC does it that way. But you reach anomalous results where, if you have a 100-foot setback, you still may be abutting residential, but your facility is 100 feet away versus somebody else, like the one we just approved, that has a 50-foot strip in there, and the building could be right, much closer than what would result from a building to building measurement.
on the other hand, it is late tonight. Didn't mean to get too deep into this discussion, but it is something for us to consider, and maybe we could hear from staff, probably not in February, but at some time in the future on that topic. My inclination is the property line to property line is pretty straightforward and easy to understand and easy to measure. And you don't have to worry about Is that awning, are we measuring from the awning or from the front door or from the stoop? But I'd be interested in hearing what other communities do in this regard. So, okay. Any other business to come before us this evening? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Right.
Thanks.